Are we now live? We are live. Good afternoon, everybody. So just a very quick welcome to our first ConeX Supplier session to celebrate the launch of our new ConeX members area. We're gonna be running a series of these sessions over the coming weeks and months, giving everyone a kind of opportunity to learn a little bit more about some of our members and some of our guests and suppliers who are part of our ConeX community. I'm not going to talk too much about that side of things and the ConeX side of things. What I will do is hand over to our host as soon as possible. So we've got Adam and Peter who are going to be introducing the Factory IQ side of things to start with. So very quick note on ConeX. So all those members out there, you'll get your logins hopefully tomorrow. And any questions or any more information about ConeX, let me know. Feel free to join in the chat on LinkedIn as this is live, and we'll make sure all the guys talking get the questions directed at them as we go. So I'm going to hand over to Adam and Peter and let you guys get started for the first session.
Superb. So it's Adam, Payne, Factory IQ. Peter, do you just want to introduce yourself as well?
Hi there, Peter Spiby, Factory IQ. Yeah.
So first of all, what I am going to say is just a little bit around, we are members of ConeX Portal under Factory IQ. One of the things that attracted us to ConeX Portal was the collaboration side. So doing things like this within the group that are in the ConeX Portal, the members that are in ConeX Portal, and also the progressive thinking within it as well. We like to stretch where we are going. We like to, as Bob Gibbon would put it, break paradigms and things like that. And this collaboration in ConeX Portal allows us to do this as well. So the members are really sort of like coming together collaboratively to work together. That's why that stands head and shoulders above anything else for us and where we are from an organisation. So that's why we are in ConeX Portal. So I did want to say that just to kick off with. Now, Factory IQ. Factory IQ, all I'm going to do is talk to you a little bit about where Factory IQ came from. Originally, it started off as the Schedule Plus, and it actually started up here in my head. And I don't, wouldn't like anybody to be stuck in my head and my thoughts processes around this. So it all came from around an operational point of view, where we wanted to be, of what I saw and witnessed and have experienced in my career from operations and getting data, and in particular from a production planning point of view. Now, we all know production planning is bloody hard. There is a science behind it, and not everything goes to plan. And also some of that is around this real-time information that we wanted to get, understanding bottlenecks, understanding where parts were, getting notifications around things, so we're not getting late in the process. So coming up to that point where we are meant to get things delivered, and all of a sudden you see, oh shit, I can't actually deliver it because the parts aren't there, and we haven't been informed early enough to then deal with the customer and the fallout from that. So this was all in my head, and it came from years of doing the operational side linked with lean manufacturing. And understanding our processes and our standard work instructions, and then how we could actually then take that into creating this smart factory, this digital manufacturing and digital operations side. And this is where Peter came in. Peter, I'd seen a number of times at some shows. Gradually got talking to him when we were having general discussions around it. And then we sort of pulled the pin and said, let's go. And this is then down to Peter to extract this information out of my head within Factory IQ. Because again, we're trying to lead all the time, trying to push the limits all the time. So Peter, I don't know whether you want to go through around how we went through that and what we did, and then what you've done to enhance that as well from a operations point of view.
Yeah. Well, as Adam says, it's no mean feat getting into his head and then trying to pull stuff out of it. But we like to think we've made a good stab at it. I mean, first of all, when Adam and I first met, Adam clearly is from a manufacturing background. We're from a data analytics, web user experience kind of background, and databases. And I could see from what Adam was doing with his spreadsheets and so on, there was real mileage in us converting that into an app that that companies could use. Using a database rather than a spreadsheet as well was a preferred technical solution for what it is that he was trying to do. So we had conversations over quite a long period, maybe 6 to 12 months, talking about the kind of problems that manufacturers face, the kind of approaches that Adam had taken so far, and then I was trying to translate that into a 21st century kind of view onto it, rather than a 1990s spreadsheet kind of a view. So we went to see a few manufacturers as well, and that was a real eye-opener for me, seeing how companies are already working, because I could see that actually Adam's Excel spreadsheet version was light years ahead of what some of them were already doing. So one of the first factories I went into, we went into the first work area. They got a big whiteboard up on the wall with post-it notes and magnetic stickies and so on, which gave them a view of what was happening in that area. When it then came to seeing what was happening in the next work area, where the jobs were going from there, the ops manager would have a look at that wall. He'd take a mental photograph of it, walk into the next area, and then try and map what was finishing in that first area to what was happening in the second area. But very easy to get lost as to what was where in the factory, what was happening with due dates, and there was no plan as to what was the most effective way to route things through the factory. They literally just had a whole load of job cards that were coming out of SAP, and it was potluck as to whatever went first. I think they're mainly basing it on prioritizing it by those that had the earliest due date. They would work on those first. So we took that data. We'd already done work with other environments that we work with to do with scheduling and so on. So we started to tweak those algorithms to work with a manufacturing environment. So we might have had maybe 400 job cards that would be live at any one time across 30 or 40 resources. And then our algorithm would shuffle all those jobs so that they would pass through the factory in the most efficient way. So you were minimizing bottlenecks and minimizing any slack time on machines. And it would not necessarily be the intuitive way that you would look at these job cards to see, well, what's the best way to get these through the factory? You know, who's our most important customer? What's the most urgent job? If you were to just follow those kind of finger in the air, let's go for that as a schedule point of view, what was coming out of our algorithm was much more efficient than that. And jobs were estimated to finish far sooner than going through with their sort of ad hoc way of doing those jobs. So not only were we able to schedule better, but we were able to provide a user interface that would work both on PCs as well as mobile devices such as tablets or phones. So it was able to get that data from the ops manager's desk down onto the shop floor, so that individual operators of machines had an idea of what was coming up next. Instead of these little pockets of information in different work areas, everybody started to get a global idea of what was going on in the factory. And it's really powerful to see that in action.
Can I chip in here, Peter, as well? Because
sure.
one of the things around the production plan, like regardless of where you are from a business, an SME point of view, I've always gone from a viewpoint that if you're around, depending on what industry you're in, depending on what you're manufacturing, you're 3.5 million up, you know, probably even a little bit before that, you definitely need to start getting very, very, how can I say, succinct in your production plan. You need to start production planning. And it's not a case of winging it, because we then start, customers are then sort of like whoever shouts loudest is the one that goes through. And then that starts putting delays in, our lead times start increasing. And that's one of the things that I'd noticed within the operations side is that we had these pockets of, bloody whiteboards that we're writing on. I've had magnetic boards with, magnets on that we used to write on across route cards. So we would follow the route card with a little magnet, just to ensure that we've got some focus on it. Whereas what we want to try and do in this digital age is get as close to real-time information as possible. And this is where I can't stress enough is there are these, whether you use us, from a Factory IQ, because there are others out there. I am biased on this, is because I've seen this and I know what it's like, and it's people that have seen it have said there's nothing like it on the market from a production planning point of view. So I know what it's like, but regardless, this is what manufacturers need to look at. This, again, is close to real-time information as possible, and this digital manufacturing side helps us do that. So I've seen this and witnessed this from a personal point of view, from production planning, and I can see absolutely the benefits of doing this digital manufacturing side. Now, there are other things that we come into this then is from, which I think Peter's going to go into, is this from an operations management point of view, we then start getting into OEE, overall equipment effectiveness. Now, that is one measure within manufacturing I would have implemented at any site, at any business, so I can understand what's happening on the shop floor. Now, again, we want that as real time, but there's also standard working structures and things like that. And I think Peter's going to go through that as well, Peter, right?
Yeah. Okay. Well, going back to the fact that you're now putting this the data in the hands of the operators, they've also got a lot more control over what can be reported back. So whereas originally operators would have their job card, their route card, or whatever, they would work through their job and pass it on. With a solution like ours, they could use their handheld device. If there was an issue, they could stop that job there, record the fact that maybe the machine is broken down or they're out of materials, and then everybody in the organization knows that there is a problem there. The automatic scheduling will then work around it, so you're not suddenly stopping the whole factory, you're just stopping an individual job, and other jobs can then start to take precedence over that one until you've got the materials back or the machine back online, and so on. And then you can record scrappage as well. So all that information, which originally Adam was having recorded on bits of paper, fed into an Excel spreadsheet, this is all captured live. So at any point you can say, right, what's the OEE on this machine today, this week, this month? How does it compare this month to last month? So it's really powerful from that point of view. As companies have started to use it, we've refined it. And one of the things that a lot of organizations were interested in was, how do we record the actual utilization of a machine? Because there's one thing for the operator asking them to start and stop jobs, but what's the actual machine itself doing? So we've developed plug and play monitors that you can attach to any electrically operated machine, really. It detects current to see whether the machine is running, and we can then live record what the utilization of your machines is. And then when you start to look at the information that's coming from that, combined with the information that you've got from your schedule, from what operators are recording when they start and stop jobs, and you compare that to what you had before, you suddenly realize that you're so much more aware of gaps in your factory, of where you can get sales to maybe look for work that will fill your overcapacity, where you might have pinch points, bottlenecks, where perhaps you're under-resourced either from a machine point of view or an operator point of view. And suddenly you realize you've got so much more capacity and you can be a lot more productive. So your productivity increases very quickly because you've got that data. You can make informed decisions rather than just running a factory, as you say, winging it. So having live data compared to winging it, there is just no comparison. And that's what you can use to drive your efficiency and your productivity. Over to you, Adam.
Yeah, now, and that's one of the main things, the other side that we wanted to expand on, again, sort of like pushing out into pushing the limits, should I say, on what we want to do. So this is where we went down into this real-time machine monitoring. Now, one of the things that we are looking at, again, because of where we are from the manufacturing business, from manufacturing, there's a big push on sustainability, environmental, and that side. So we're now actually looking to see, we've actually got some idea around what we want to do and how we can actually monitor the energy usage going through that as well. So we're already piecing together. So this real-time machine monitoring will actually start giving you feedback on the energy consumption and costs as well. So we're, again, pushing the boundaries on it. So from our side, regardless where you are from a manufacturing point of view, we're talking, obviously Factory IQ here, we're biased towards that because that is our business. But I cannot stress enough for manufacturers to make that shift into the digital manufacturing side, because it doesn't need to be expensive to get functionality on it, and there are ways of stepping into it that allow you to make these bigger steps later on. So you've got to do your research and look at it from that viewpoint. So little things can take a step. Yes, Angela.
Sorry, yes, I was just going to ask. I mean, is there any specialist software that manufacturers need? Do they need to spend thousands of pounds on, special systems to be able to run this?
No, Factory IQ will run off your mobile.
Oh, right, okay.
So Peter, it's just a URL, isn't it, that it's hosted through, and all the information
it's just
goes
hosted in the cloud. There's nothing needs to be installed locally.
Yeah.
We set up links to your job system, so whether that's SAP or whatever, or Tricorn, we make adapters that can pull the information, because all we need to know is what are your jobs, what are the steps that make up that job, what resources do they use, and we use all that to feed our algorithms to then work out schedules, and everything else is all just hosted on our servers. So there's no software needs to be installed. You simply subscribe to it as software as a service.
Well, yeah. I think that's probably one of the biggest blockers for a lot of companies, where they've bought in a new system and they've paid tens of thousands of pounds for it, and then it doesn't actually do what they want it to do. And I think people, when they hear about, they've heard Factory IQ, but they're probably thinking, well, how many tens of thousands is it going to integrate with our current software? So that's really good to hear that.
It's nowhere near that. It's a SaaS software. And it is what we wanted to do was have because of the emphasis that in particular we have in helping and supporting SMEs shift into the digital manufacturing. It is high functionality, low level cost for what it is, and we are quite happy on where we are with that because it just opens out so much more for the SME base. I noticed Steve has just asked, do you expose limitations in problem solving skills when implementing Factory IQ? What I will say to you, Steve, from that point of view, is that when you get into this real-time monitoring, CNC monitoring side, you can see, in some cases, 40% utilization across machines, let's say over a month period. Now, and Steve, you're like me from a lean perspective, when we talk about this hidden factory, that is actually illustrating to you what the hidden factory is, because at 44% utilization, you've got another factory within your factory on capacity. Now, we do have issues where it could be that we ain't got the skill set, we haven't got the material, we've got high on changeovers, we've got breakdown issues. So yes, it highlights those things into it. You do have to go and look at the cause analysis. I mean, one of the good things about what we've got with Factory IQ and Edge Essentials is that we can take Edge Essentials, which is the real-time monitoring, and ghost that over your production plan. So you can actually see where these gaps are. So you can see from your production plan, well, this is where we're meant to be working. Well, this is where we've actually worked and we've got these gaps. Right, why have I got these gaps? And we can get down into that information, which is exactly what we want. And you can have it real time as well. So it is good for driving opportunity and problem solving and going to investigation, but it doesn't necessarily expose the limitations. That's probably a different skill set. But again, it could once you start doing the cause analysis, once you start going into it. So I hope that's answered your question, Pete.
I think another thing just to point out, as well as the cost, because obviously that's an important consideration, but there is a cost organisationally as well. If the software is really complex, if people having to spend time to learn it and so on. And one of the features of Factory IQ is you can start very simple with it. So literally just pull in your schedule, build a schedule, that's it. You could just use that online. Then bring on board your operators so that they can start and stop jobs. And then maybe sometime down the line, let's physically monitor the machines to see what's happening. But you can start off really simple. Just all you're doing is replacing your job cards with electronic job cards, really, which are ordering themselves in the most optimal order to run through your factory. But conceptually, it's no different to having your job card. So you're not introducing anything new at that point, but you can build it out over time.
And that's one of the comments that's been back to us from the people who saw it, saying, I can't believe how quick this has been undertaken and taken on board by the shop floor. That's one of the comments we get. The other side of it is, for me as well, is that picking up on what you were saying, Angela, around the software side, What we tend to do within businesses and across business industries, with different sectors, is we tend to look for that one piece of software that does all. Now, in manufacturing, I know that what we do is look for a CRM database, potentially, or an ERP, MRP database, but it has a production planning module in it. But generally, they're shite, in my opinion, and that's where we've concentrated on, because yes, you want that MRP, ERP system, you want that CRM database from a sales and marketing perspective of what you're doing and following up. But the next critical point is actually getting the stuff through the factory, because that's your revenue. So you want to understand how that's going through your factory. So you don't want to skimp on the operational side of the software, because that's critical. And so that's where the thing really is. We weren't interested in the MRP, the ERP. We're interested in saying, from my operational side, that's where we need to concentrate on getting the revenue, getting it through, and understanding what's happening and the opportunities that we have to do further things, growth, progression.
Sounds really good.
So that's about my 20 minutes over, I think. Hour 20 minutes over there, Peter.
Hey, you've timed that very well. I was going to quickly jump in and just ask, who have you kind of recognized as your ideal customer for this sort of thing? Who kind of jumps out? Who do you tend to work with, put it that way?
The SME base, I would say, from manufacturers, 3.5 million up to the 10 million, because then probably 10, 15 million. And slightly above, but generally they've gone into these big packages. They've had the likes of SAP and things like that, which are a big cost. So then the tendency is not keen around pushing things anymore, but that would be our ideal client, because we want to help the SME base move and give them the opportunity, give them the information that enables them to grow, and that's what we're after. That's what we're all about.
And I think anybody that is just overwhelmed with the number of jobs that they've, so regardless of size of company, if you've got 300 or 400 jobs open at any one time, and that's what we see. In a machine shop with maybe 30, 40 machines, that's beyond the scope of anybody trying to wing it, So that's our ideal customer, is somebody that may have started off small, they've grown over time, they've taken on more work, they've taken on more machines, and suddenly the tools that they used from a management point of view when they started out are no longer suitable for them to be able to manage what they're doing, and they're missing out. It's really important in this post-pandemic world that we improve productivity, and simple tools will help organisations like that might have great sales. They're getting the work in, but they're having to turn stuff away because they feel they don't have the capacity. But actually, just getting some real data in there, they can then see this hidden factory. And it might not be a whole factory. It might be a hidden 25%. That is 25% more revenue and more productivity that they can be getting out. Because we're going to find that materials are going to be in short supply, labour is going to be in short supply. So anything that manufacturers can do to help themselves will help the economy as a whole.
Yeah, sorry, quickly, I just wanted to ask, when you help companies implement the Factory IQ, is it a one-off thing, or do you, subsequently aid them, help them update the system and all of that?
It's continually improving, and the best input we can have for that improvement is feedback from existing customers. So we're always looking to see how we can improve it. We're always looking for feedback from our customers, and it's an ever-evolving product. So it doesn't stand still.
No, it doesn't stand still. The CNC, the real-time CNC monitoring stuff is plug and play and can be up and running. So, but we do again walk the businesses through that as well, even though it is plug and play.
Then just finally for me, sorry, the system, does it provide predictive, analysis? Like, is it able to see into the future of the machine, what's going to happen, how soon, and all of that?
It doesn't at the moment. That's something that we're looking at, because that's something that we've done working with non-manufacturing clients. Done a lot of analytics around that. We haven't done that at the moment, but it's certainly something as the data set that we're working with builds, we can then start to look at predictive analytics. It's trying to find that balance between keeping the system simple and affordable, but then providing the powerful things like the predictive analytics. Because in order to do that, you're then starting to have to feed information about the manpower that you've got, your shift patterns, and so on. And that starts to then become a more complicated system. And it is a route we're looking to go down, but we need to keep it simple to start with kind of methodology. So it's finding the balance between those two. But yes, alongside looking at things like carbon footprint, then yes, predictive analytics is something that we're looking at. And we could start with the data that we've got and look to augment it as we start to record things like shift patterns and so on into the data.
And they'll more than likely be modules, Tolu, as well. So you can have a base module for where you are and what you want to do from an SME point of view. You can have X to get you going, and then you can build on top of that to enable you then to shift as you get more comfortable and more progressive and more sort of like thinking along the forecasting and what we're looking to do. So it'll be modular, but you can modular build it.
I think that goes some way to answering Peter Francis's question as well. About saying a lot of the data is entered by human operators. Can it go deeper into the real machine performance? Which is
we do right from Factory IQ. You can have both human input, but from a real time monitoring, that's actually the machine. The data is actually being inputted by the kit. You have to go and look at the causal analysis for of what the issue is, but it will monitor at that point when you've got downtime. So you're not relying on a human to actually input data. The monitors actually do that for you.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thanks very much. All of these sessions are going to be recorded, so if anyone did join us late, then we do have access to it if you want to re-listen, and we'll be posting them again shortly. So we're doing this session as a bit of a double header. So next up, we've got our first guest speaker of the ConeX sessions, and I will hand straight over to Anton to tell us a bit more about yourself and what you do.
Sam, thanks very much. I'm the doom monger. I'm very proud of being the doom monger, but with every doom mongering that I do, there has to be some sort of out. I'm Anton Gunter. I'm the Managing Director of Global Freight Services. We're a bespoke multimodal freight business. We deal in air, road, sea. And I think today it's quite important because we're coming to the end of November. Who can believe that? But we're coming to the end of the first year of Brexit. And I think there's a couple of updates that I want to do on that. And just around international logistics. But also I think it's a really exciting time for UK manufacturing, because with the global pandemic, with the problems with supply chain, et cetera, I think there's going to be a real emphasis on buying locally and being able to supply, manufacture locally, not just local to UK, but I think if I was in manufacturing, I'd certainly be really excited about the rest of the world that's now becoming sick of dealing with China, sick of dealing with supply chain. So to kick off with, I thought I'd just talk a little bit about the start of the year. Obviously, 2020, we went through the changes and we were going to leave. And as of the 1st of January, actually the 31st of December 2020 at 11 o'clock, we went over to the new world and we left the EU. As freight forwarders, we walked into the office and certainly didn't know what was going to happen. But on day sort of 3, 4, 5 of it, we already knew it's actually going to be easier than people thought it was going to be. So we look at things like what Brexit meant for logistics into Europe on exports. Suddenly manufacturers, people had to be ERI registered. They have to know which paperwork they need to supply. They need to know which commodity code or HS codes they need to have in order to get their goods out of the UK. They need to do the export clearance. When it arrives into their designated country in Europe, they need to do customs clearance, and then someone needs to be responsible for paying duties and taxes. On imports, it's been a little bit easier than going into Europe. I think the UK government has really played a couple of good tricks, and by all means, I'm not the biggest supporter of the UK government at times, but at other times, I think they're doing not a bad job. One of those things on imports where they brought in delayed or deferred customs clearances, which basically means that if you're importing in from Europe and let's say, for example, you're bringing it on a Monday, the 1st of January, you have 6 months with which to do your customs clearance. So in the first year, to get people used to the processes, we were seeing vehicles turning up at our warehouse with foreign drivers coming to do customs clearances, when in actual fact, you just have to go straight to the delivery point because the customs clearances are being done electronically. We did see a couple of loopholes in as much as there were a couple of Dover being one of them, one of the largest ports, which was non-inventory linked, which meant that lorries could pretty much drive through into the UK and say they're doing deferred customs clearances, and HMRC wouldn't know what was coming in. So I'm sure there's going to be some manufacturers, some people that have brought product into the country that have not done customs clearances, or in fact haven't done any any process to do with customs clearances. The one massive masterstroke that the government did bring in is something called PVA, or postponed VAT accounting. And basically what it means is, if you're importing from any country in the world, you don't have to physically pay the VAT element on your import duties and taxes. You can defer that to your next VAT record, i.e. your quarterly VAT return. And that's massive. I think that's probably one of the biggest things for importing, whether it be from Europe or from the rest of the world, because that certainly will help cash flow. The good news is that is set to continue throughout. The government have said that that's going to be an indefinite thing. And I'm hoping, fingers crossed, for a lot of manufacturers, for a lot of our customers, that does continue, because it means that the VAT element no longer needs to be considered. And if you consider that if you've got a trade deal with Europe and a lot of the product that you may be importing in from Europe is zero rated, it means that you're not going to pay any duties and or taxes. So if you're suddenly paying £20,000 in duties and taxes, which you were paying ordinarily, if you move over to postponed VAT accounting, it means that that £20,000 stays in your pocket. I think, I don't know if I'm the only one, but I always thought VAT returns and VAT claiming always seemed a bit of a strange one. I pay £20,000 worth of VAT to the government, and then they pay me back again. It's like, well, what's the point of even paying if it's just a net? So for me, I think that's been the biggest positive, is postponed VAT accounting. That has also been rolled out to all the countries in the world. So in other words, if you're importing from China, if you're importing from South Africa or from Europe, you're able to use postponed VAT accounting, and make sure that you do use postponed VAT accounting. I think the looking into the future, somebody asked about a crystal ball and can you do predictive analytics? Tolu, I can do predictive analytics. 2022 is going to be pretty much the same as 2021, except a little bit more exciting. I think Brexit's bringing a new element. As of the 1st of January, there's no more postponed or deferred customs clearances. So everything you bring into the country, you have to customs clear straight away. Issue number one, there's going to be delays. And I always say to people, the biggest thing that we as a company can do is manage expectations. Yes, we can get your goods here, but if you know when those goods are going to be here at all the time, then it's not a delay, because you knew. Yes, it might be an original delay, but certainly from our perspective, we work on the basis that managing expectation is a massive thing for us. So when we look at 2022, I think the first 3 to 6 months, there's going to be another adjustment needed for customers or people importing from Europe, because we're now going to go from a where you can have deferred it for 6 months. There's no vehicles having to wait at port to get customs cleared. We're now going to a process of having to immediately customs clear those goods from Europe. So you might find that your goods are customs cleared, but on the other hand, you might find somebody else that's on the same lorry as you that's not customs cleared, and unfortunately, you're then going to be delayed. However, the government's put in what they're calling importing trailer parks or international trailer parks, where vehicles can now go and pull up. A lot of the large hauliers also have what they call bonded warehousing. So they'll take their vehicles or their content from France, for example, into a bonded warehouse, say, let's say in Telford. And then your goods will just wait in that bonded warehouse until you've sorted out your customs clearance and paid the duties and taxes. So I think from a Brexit point of view, I think we're all pretty used to the process now. There's a lot of rumblings about carnets for people who do exhibitions and stuff like that. I think we've regressed in process, but actually progressed in knowledge. And I think the other thing that a lot of people are seemingly not understanding is that technology 20 years ago, you can now do things electronically. Customs clearance can be done electronically. Carnets can be applied for electronically. Yes, you've got to fill out the paperwork, and I get all of that. But we've progressed in terms of technology. So we haven't seen a massive In fact, we've seen a massive increase in trade into Europe. And I think that's because we've taken the whole process of Brexit and taken and said, okay, well, yeah, it's no different to the processes we're already doing. And hopefully people feel comfortable with that. And I think for us, we were slightly pessimistic about Brexit in terms of the process. If truth be told, I voted to remain because of the business, because it's so easy to send stuff into Europe. But now that we've been about a year in, it's almost second nature now. And even our customers are now getting into that routine. Looking further afield, again, Tolu, looking for predictive thought processes. We're looking at 2022 for the outlook from China. So China has been massively affected by the COVID outbreak. Obviously, it started there. But more importantly, when China closed down, the rest of the world was wanting their product. When the rest of the world closed down, China was open and shipping all their product. It's caused massive delays or massive problems in terms of container issues. When we talk about container issues, we're talking about the containers being in the wrong places, i.e., shipments that normally would, let's say, go to Brazil from China are not going, the containers aren't going back because maybe there's not product to go back to China. Also, vessels during the pandemic and during China being closed, a lot of the shipping companies have closed or stopped a lot of their vessels, and they haven't been put back onto rotation. Again, when we talk about rotation, the world operates for sea freight operates on two planes. It operates on a horizontal plane and a vertical plane. So ships feeding down, let's say, for example, Singapore at the moment is having massive problems because they've got so many containers going to Singapore. So a shipment going from South Africa to Australia, for example, is being held up in Singapore because of the fact that they can't get the containers through Singapore and there's no direct sailings. So China is going to remain an issue. China is also going through, and another great thing, I think, for British manufacturing, but China is going through a bit of an issue with regards to electricity. Some of their factories and some of their regions are actually being closed down by the government to allow housing and private individuals to have electricity. So they are almost being put on a time scale of manufacture. And this is also causing, obviously, delays in supply chain in terms of people being able to get their products. It's well documented. Shipping rates last year, or let's take 2019 as an example. If we were paying $8,000 for a 40-foot container, we're in the region of about $18,000 now. So again, if I sit here with a smile on my face because I'm almost shooting myself in the foot when I say UK manufacturing needs to come alive, and they need to understand that there is, yes, China's always been cheaper, but it's not at the moment. And if you can get your foot into people who normally get supplied by China, provide great product, provide great service, people are going to buy on price, and it doesn't matter if they're slightly more expensive because UK manufacturing can come back again. So I think the outlook for UK manufacturing should be, wow, this is going to be a sunny time because even competing with Europe, you've got customs clearances, you've got additional charges, so we should be able to get into those costing jobs a lot more cost effective, but still make money. So I think China, the sea route and air routes from China are going to remain congested. I've sort of written on my notes maybe 6 months. We don't know how long that's going to be. It's the one bit that I wish maybe Factory IQ could help me with, in as much as we can, they can predict how much product we're going to need. But from our point of view, I think the Chinese air freight and sea freight routes are going to remain congested. Prices are going to remain high. Looking locally into the UK, massive driver shortage, etc. I think that's always been coming along. I think
I was going to ask you about that, Anton, because it was all in the news a few months ago, but we don't seem to have heard much about it. So is there still that driver shortage that we were suffering months ago?
Angela, there's always been a driver shortage. Now, what happens in the UK is if something affects business, low level, yeah, people grumble about it, but it goes on. As soon as someone can't put petrol in their car, that becomes a massive issue and the whole world has to stop. So driver shortages have always been there. Ever since I've been in the industry 25 years, I've always known I've had to jump in a 7.5 ton because we can't get a driver or whatever the case may be. And the reason for that is pure and simple. Driving, kids nowadays like in manufacturing, Angela, I always see you talking about apprenticeships in manufacturing, etc. Kids don't want to start at the bottom anymore. They want to have a degree, and they want to jump into a company car with a laptop and a mobile phone, and they want to go do sales, or they want to go do technical stuff of which they know nothing. And that's the same for driving. You don't find young drivers because it's uncool to be a driver and away from home for 3-4 days. Personally, if I was a single lad, 18, 19, I get an HGV license because you drive, you get paid, you don't spend a lot of money, and so there's always been a driver shortage. Industry has been moaning about it, and the people that are moaning about it the most, funnily enough, have the most to gain, i.e. the Haulage Association. I noticed something about the Road Haulage Association moaning the other day that the government's not doing enough. But how many hauliers actually have an apprenticeship scheme for drivers? How many of them are bringing youngsters into their own industry? Because at the end of the day, why must the government provide drivers and they're going to make the money? Are the government going to make the money? Who's paying the army drivers to go off? They're still making the same level, and I guarantee you army drivers aren't paid half as much as. So I think our industry as a whole, and when I talk about our industry, I'm talking about the haulage industry, need to start having a look at themselves and saying, right, okay, what can we do to encourage more people to come into the industry? I also think it's well documented that driving hours were brought in to protect drivers, which are okay. Salaries can be improved, working conditions. I think where the government and where private individuals like maybe the service operators along the motorways can do is provide better facilities for drivers. You're going to Europe, and it's like they're going into a 5-star hotel. They can literally have food on I think it's in the Netherlands where you can get a free cup of coffee at services. So there are things that I think private individuals can do to relay that. But certainly there is no quick fix to driver or the driver shortage. We had a customer ring up the other day and say, oh, by the way, we had to show the driver backwards because he was a new driver. At which point I sort of smiled and said, well, you meant to show the driver back anyway. It's called being a banksman. And when you reverse the vehicle back to make sure he doesn't hit the walls. Secondly, if your son or daughter is in a driving lesson and have just passed their test, don't you help them? So why do we have to have this thing about, new drivers, they should be knowing what they should be doing when we can? So I think the driver shortage is easing, but it's not going to be an instantaneous thing. And until driving becomes a lot sexier, if that's the right word, we're going to find that there's going to be a driver shortage.
Do you think, Anton, as well? I recall, and probably other people within the manufacturing industry will have seen this as well. One of the biggest issues when I was trying to get stuff transported was actually getting it tipped at the other end, because sometimes the lorries were having to wait hours and hours to get it tipped, which obviously causes delays. Do you see that across your industry?
Dare I say it, lunch break. The warehouse are on lunch, and you just think, okay, I get it, you're on lunch, but 2-hour lunch is a little bit long. Yeah, we do see that. We see that regularly. Sometimes, so sometimes we find that some people are really, really, really accommodating, and if a driver's, we can't help what happens on the motorway. So when that vehicle is running from A to B, you get to a point where maybe get stuck on the M6 and it's maybe an hour late. Well, I tell you what, we'll always ring our customers, say, right, the driver's running an hour late, and you'll hear them say, right, okay, no problem, get the guys out to lunch now, early, and then when it comes in, then they've done. So, but then you get other people that you ring them and go, oh, well, they'll just have to do or work when we hear. The other thing, and I'm not trying to put this all back onto industry, because the delivery side has a point to prove. But if you've got a half an hour left in your day and it's going to take you 45 minutes to offload a vehicle, come on, guys, 15 minutes overtime. What they'll rather say is you'll have to deliver tomorrow morning. Then we have some places like Amazon, like some of the bigger companies that have delivery slots. And if you miss that delivery slot, you've got to go back in again, and that can be tomorrow morning. So it's a mixture. I think there are problems with delivering at times, but then it's also a case of knowing that unfortunately the vehicle is running a little bit late. But I think that's where we as a company, or we as an industry, have a part to play. Because if I'm delivering to Adam, I need to tell Adam, okay, the vehicle's going to be there at 9 o'clock. If it's not there at 9 o'clock, I mustn't wait for Adam to tell me the vehicle's not there. I should know it's there or there. So I might ring Adam at 5 to 9 and say, Adam, has the vehicle turned up? He says, no. I said, no problem. Ring your... So that everyone, as I said right in the beginning, and it's the same for air freight and sea freight, delays are only caused when you don't know what's happening. So if something was due to arrive on the 21st and it's now arriving on the 22nd, well, it's not a delay because you know it's now arriving on the 22nd. It's only a delay if you don't understand. So for us, the delivery side of it, I don't think plays a massive part in terms of the driver shortage. I just think it's a job that people don't want to do. And I think in the future, you're going to find bricklayers, electricians, people who work with their hands, which is already becoming, no one talks about the scarcity of those. But because it affects us so greatly with deliveries, etc., Christmas coming up, etc., it's in the domain. So I think for us, we as an industry need to look at ourselves at how we hire people, what we get them to do, and then and also invest in ourselves. A lot of the haulage companies don't invest in themselves. They don't invest they want experience, 3 years driving experience. If you've just got your test, how can you? Where do you go to get 3 years driving experience? So it's a little bit difficult in terms of. Saying, well, that's going to make a difference or that's not going to make a difference. But I think in the main, we are seeing. The other thing I would say is it's quite strange how McDonald's didn't have strawberry milkshakes. Then suddenly they had strawberry milkshakes, and then they don't have water. And don't you know where Booker's are? Don't you know where Costco is? Can't you just go and buy them from them rather than having to have that delivery? So I think we're also seeing that circumstance is making people act differently. I don't know how many times you hear, oh, you can't speak to that person. Can you drop them an email because they're working from home? Don't they have a phone? Can we not? So I think the whole pandemic thing has also driven it, because the other thing that's obviously happened is that the government changed some of the self-employed tax laws. ER1,
is that the IR35?
That's it, yes.
Yeah.
And so basically, what happened was when they changed that, a lot of the Brex or the European drivers left and went back to go work it up because it was no longer financially viable. So I think there are certain things that the government doing well. There's other things that wasn't quite thought about. And when we saw that exodus of drivers, maybe somebody should have popped their head up and said, should we just change this for drivers, or should we just try and encourage drivers to come back again? They had the short-term fix of visas, etc., etc. Again, that's not going to make a massive difference. I think once the drivers decided to go work in Europe, it's not regular. When you look at European driver deliveries, they turn up. I don't know if you've seen them, but they wear Crocs inside their vehicle. Then they put their working boots when they get out, and their vehicle is just clean and it's brand new. I would say maybe a year, 2 years old maximum. Whereas in the UK, we have a lot of hauliers that are running older vehicles. Maybe we can look at, making sure that the driving conditions are, exciting for youngsters to come through. So I think generally the outlook for 2022 is great. I think, again, coming back to manufacturers, if you've got customers that are now, or you've got potential customers that are buying out of China, now's the time to start squeezing them and saying, look, we know there are issues with supply chain. Don't get me wrong, we are getting shipments through, so it's not death. We've got customers that are definitely shipping from China and that potentially could have that have manufactured in Europe but are still shipping in from China. We've got a couple of customers who manufactured in China but have moved their manufacture to Poland because of that shipping rate. So I think people, the more we can get manufacturing out there, UK manufacturing, and as a foreigner growing up in South Africa, we always knew about UK manufacturing, the Mini, come on, everyone knows about the Mini, the Spitfire. So there's great product out there, and we've got a lot of customers that make some great products. But we seem to have become this insular thing, I think, maybe due to Europe, maybe not, but we sort of don't want to shout about how great our products are. Whereas I think, it's time to start shouting, and I think 2022 is the year of doing that.
Absolutely agree with you, Anton. Yes, definitely.
I don't know if there's any questions. I did see it sort of started flashing really excitingly on my phone with all the messages. I don't know if there were any questions that I may have missed.
No, Anton, question for me. Fantastic roundup, fantastic overview. Loads of information there for manufacturers. Now, if you're a manufacturer now taking that information, yes, you can replay and watch this back, but is there a place where you can signpost people to get all of the policy changes, things that are coming in, your overviews? Okay, that's what I was going to say. So
I mean this in the nicest possible way. The best way is to ring me on the landline, get to one of the staff, just say to them, saw Anton on a ConeX portal thing or whatever. The gatekeepers are quite strict in my offices, but I'm more than happy to chat because I think it's on an individual basis. I can give you so much information, where to start, how to start, etc., etc. But we genuinely have taken a lot of manufacturers this year and last year, to be fair, and started them right from looking at their paperwork, looking at their what we issue to customs, how we issue it, giving them ERI numbers. So it's not just a case of saying, yeah, signpost, you can go to the government portal, read the jargon, read all of that, or actually you can just come to someone who speaks plain English and just says, okay, this is what you need. Because a lot of the stuff is wind. And I'm sure, a lot of manufacturers, when you manufacture something, you don't need to really know the process, just know that it works like this and this is what it is. And so for us, it's the easiest way if somebody wants to start dealing with Europe, or we get an incredible amount of, we think it's a waste of time, but we want to ship to Australia. Do it. Why not? Just get on with it. So you concentrate on manufacture, we'll concentrate on shipping it, and we literally will start you from giving you as little information as possible, not to confuse you. When you start getting used to the process, then we start feeding you information. So that about 25 years' time, you've done it, you can do it yourself, then decide. I don't want to give you all the information now. But we certainly have taken a lot of manufacturers' hand this year, especially with Brexit, and really, taken a lot of the pain away for them, because they don't want to care about the bureaucracy. They just want to do their job. They want to manufacture. I think that's the important thing.
Brilliant. Well, yeah, there's been a lot of very positive comments there. Feel free to read through them all. As I said, we have recorded this session. I'll also, when I repost it and reshare it, I'll make sure everyone's contact details are in there, so we can connect.
So sorry to interrupt you there. I just saw a comment from says he hopes, from a manufacturer's point of view, I've always been one that puts the customer first, and for me, it's about if we shipped some glasses for a lady who sells Prosecco from China to the UK when she could have bought them at Costco. And it's that sort of thing. Well, it doesn't make sense. Why do you want to import it from China if you can buy it from Costco? They're probably imported from China. So for us, it's about the customer. And we have on occasions, when we've spoken to customers, actually found them a supplier in the UK and said, actually, I know you want to import and we're going to lose the work, but this is a better option for you right now. And it's about cost. If importing and exporting isn't cheap with the current rates of sea freight and air freight, somebody wants it here tomorrow, that's not going to be cheap. But if you want it here in 3 months' time, we can get it here in 3 months' time, it's going to be cheaper. So I think for us, or for us as a car, I can only speak for our company, the customer we listen to what the customer wants rather than what we want to give them.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important, that, transparency, a bit more collaborative, a bit more kind of actually supporting one another. And that's definitely something that we're looking to drive forward. So we'll end that session there. Again, thank you very much, everyone, for attending and commenting and questioning. We will share these recordings over the coming weeks. And we have another one of these sessions on Thursday afternoon with Ram from Equitas Engineering. So keep an eye on our LinkedIn posts and we will see you all there. So thank you very much.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.